Hi, in this video, we're going to look at more advanced material setups and properties like Clearcoat, Sheen, transmission, rough refraction, and others. Often when you see games advertise that they're now using next generation materials, what they mean is they now support these properties and their artists can set up more rich materials that mimic the real world better. And here we have a few examples of that. We have rough refraction, sheen effects, which are the light reflections that you often see on the sides of clothing and fabric. Clear coat, which pretty much means what the name says, applying a clear layer that has its own reflection properties on top of a material, like coating a car, but also so-called thin film glass, and refraction effects, where you can see that the scene is refracted in the glass of an object. All of these materials can be set up and used in Needle Engine, as we're doing right now. And I'm going to show you how and what these effects mean. We're going to use the Unity integration from Needle for setting this up and bringing it to the web. The material properties are very similar across different softwares by now, so you will find similar properties in Blender or Houdini or 3ds Max or elsewhere. And most importantly, these material properties are part of the glTF specification, which means that they're interoperable. It means that you can bring rich materials that have various surface properties from one software to another and keep them pretty until they end up in the browser or somewhere where your users see them. So let's get started. We're going to start with the default URP lit material here. But the first thing we're going to do is we're going to switch it to a more capable shader, which already ships with Needle. If you click on the shader dropdown here, you can select Unity glTF PBR graph. Oh, and PBR graph is matching the glTF material model, which means that all of the properties available in the web are reflected here. And importantly, this is not, as you might assume, a subset of what URP lit supports, like what Unity has in their universal rendering pipeline. Instead, the glTF material model is actually already more advanced than what the universal pipeline does, and so you have more properties to play with. You can even use these properties in Unity. For my projects, the PBR graph material is pretty much a drop-in replacement for URP lit that can do the same and more. If you scroll down on the URP lit material, you're going to see a lot of toggles here that turn these advanced material features on or off. And there are various of these features. They can be combined, which we're going to get to a bit later. So you can make transmissive materials that are also coated, that also have some fabric-like properties, no problem. So the first thing we're going to look at is the Clearcoat extension. So I'm going to enable Clearcoat here, and that gives us new sliders related to Clearcoat and even the ability to drop in maps to control the behavior in more detail. If we turn up Clearcoat, we can see that our object gets more shiny. It gets more reflective. But what's interesting and different to just using the roughness slider here is that this is a second layer of roughness applied on top of the existing material. What that means is that when we adjust the base roughness here, we can see that it happens under this Clearcoat material. So both of them basically add together to give you a final reflection. It's even more visible if we turn Clearcoat back off and now make our material very, very rough. And we bring the coating back. And you can see that this is a slider, which means we can basically decide how strongly is the surface coated in a reflective layer. And we can even control the roughness of that individually. So now we have separate roughness sliders basically for our base layer, which you can see if we put it all the way to 0, then we get our shiny reflections back. And now we have a coating on top that's actually matte. So we can coat this object in a matte way. One area where you see this effect used a lot is on car surfaces, because cars tend to be coated in a reflective layer. And so often you will have a already somewhat reflective base layer like we have here. Like, let's say this is our car surface. And now we're coating it. So we're adding a clear layer of coat to it. And you can see that this already looks a little bit like a car surface where you get broad, rough reflections and also a coating on top. The next effect we're going to look at is sheen. And for that, I'm going to reset my clear coat here and disable the layer again. And for that, I'm going to disable clear coat and this time instead turn on sheen. And in the same way, this adds new properties to our material, in this case, a sheen color, also some maps where we can control stuff with, and a sheen roughness. Currently, the sheen material model in the PBR graph shader isn't as good. So what we're going to do for this exercise is we're going to export this object as glTF and then modify it in Needle Viewer, where we can accurately see how sheen behaves. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this object, go to Unity glTF export selected. That gives me a GLB file that I can then open in Needle Viewer. Similar to what we have in Unity, we can adjust material properties here. And if we expand this section, then we can see that there's a lot of properties to choose from to adjust on this material. For now, we're going to focus on sheen. So if we tune the sheen color all the way down to black, this is how the material looks without any sheen to it. And if we turn it back up, you can see that we get this fabric-like feel. Sheen is basically that effect of little fibers all around the fabric reflecting light at grazing angles. And this is how it looks like. Oh, and there's a sheen roughness slider that basically controls how these fibers work or how this like grazing angle effect works. And it goes all the way from very shiny. So now these grazing angle effects are very strong to something that basically covers the entire object and makes it feel more smooth, I would say. Often you'll end up with some in-between value like I have here. And for those of you familiar with shader development, a related effect is the Fresnel effect, which is often an approximation that people use to get this appearance of the borders of an object having a little bit of lighting effect on them. And the physical correct approach to this is sheen. Now we can also adjust the color of the sheen. And here we're kind of leaving the territory of realistic effects. Like you find slightly colored sheen effects on clothing as well, but probably nothing that's as strong as this. You can see that it's basically mixing together the base color now and this Fresnel sheen overlay. You can also see that roughness and metalness and so on, they still work. So you can combine all these effects together and make metallic objects that also have some fabric-like properties on the edges. And this is also, again, something that you may see in cars. Like sometimes fancy cars have sheen effects that give them colors at grazing angles. So you might have some base color for your car. And then when you walk around it and see it from different angles, you get a very similar effect. That's it for Clearcoat and Sheen. And in the next video, we're going to look at transmission and refraction.